Was I muted? Thanks. Off to a good start. uh, welcome, everybody. We are the Pixelists. I'm Will. That's my co-host over there, the greatest, the man, the myth, the legend, the gentleman, the scholar. Do anything for a dollar. Blake. Dude, me too. It's been tough not talking about it, man. But I'm so glad we get to dive into it now. Uh, Gosh, dude, what a good episode. What a good show this has been so far. Bro, the score has been so good. It's really, I mean, not, I'm just repeating what you said now, but it just kicks it up to just the next level. It gets me so hype. Yeah, we do. They just hate watching it. They're like, the score's not even that good. But man, we got so much to talk about here. We got evil smoke monsters, hatches, mysterious mysteries at the core of the show. This is a four-letter show that starts with L, and it's not Lost. We're talking about Loki today, even though we easily could be talking about Lost with all those things I just mentioned. It really, were you getting those vibes at all? I kept being like, dang, so many things are reminding me of it.
Oh yeah, and can you imagine if there was a Pixelist podcast back when Lost was out?
Bro,
Like the content, man. I mean, it would have been so much to talk about.
that would have been really fun.
Yeah,
I'll throw it out there. I loved Lost. I know some people are kind of it's swing or miss, hit or miss for them,
it's
but
it's tough. I think the thing. I think most people would agree that Lost is an amazing show. And by the way, for the person in my chat who pointed out that my mic was muted on Twitch, apparently both of us are having issues with our mics today, so we should be good.
struggling.
So I had my cousin was in town. They were traveling through. He's got four kids, and they all got there. It was like 8 or 9 o'clock at night, and then all the four kids like dispersed to like watch TV on their laptops. And I was like, "What are they watching?" And he's like, "Oh, they're watching Lost." And they had never seen it before. And these
Oh
are
dang!
all like, 14, 15, I don't know how old. But they were watching Lost together. And I was like, oh man, they are in. I think they were on like season 2 or something. But I was like,
Oh
what a
wow!
treat of a show. But it's tough. It's tough to end a show well, which is, I think, where a lot of the criticism comes from. In fact, most people that I talked to, A, didn't get the show, or
Yeah.
B, just didn't like the ending. So like, spoiler alert for anyone who doesn't want to hear anything about Lost, which I don't know why we're talking about this, but this is our moment for a second. So spoilers, go ahead and just skip ahead for like 60 seconds if you're ever going to watch this show. But I was talking to a guy, for example, the person who didn't get it. He was like, "Oh, I hated Lost. Yeah, they were dead the entire time." And I was like, okay, you didn't get it because that's
Yeah.
not at all what the case
That's
was.
not what happened.
Yeah, it was not what happened in the show. So I've heard comments like that who were like, oh, things like that. Or they were in hell. And I'm like, no, that is not what it was. And so things like that. But anyway, great show. And I wish the Pixelists had been around to deep dive chat about
Man,
it.
that would have been so fun. I feel like our episodes would have been like 4 hours long each time.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, we definitely would have been Mephistoing hard, back
Oh
in the
yeah,
day. I mean, it would have been so
for sure,
much. So.
for sure.
But let's talk
Uh,
about what we're here for, which
yeah, I guess. Okay.
we got way off base.
Yeah, we did.
We've already been goozing hard about episode 5. The listeners, obviously, they're not privy to like our text message conversation, but you watched it 2 in the morning on Tuesday night. I
Yeah.
always know it's a great app when I wake up in the morning and I have a text from my co-host Will, who's like, dude. So that excites me, gets me energized. We usually watch it Wednesday night, but we ended up watching it around midday on Wednesday. And then I texted you and was like, bro, and you were like, save it for the episode. So much to talk about. I don't know how we're going to squeeze it all in today, but hopefully those of you who are listening, hopefully you've seen the episode. Hopefully you loved it too, because we're going to just be talking about all the awesome stuff today.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess let's just kick it off. And as always, I'll give a quick recap of the episode. Try to keep it brief. But anyways, the episode basically started. We have our Loki kind of from the post-credit scene, waking up in that area surrounded by variant Lokis. And as we come to find out, that is known as the Void at the end of time. And basically, they just hit us with the information real quick. He's like, there's a smoke monster. That's Goliath. He's going to kill us. We got to run. And they're basically off. And this whole area is littered with, like, literally littered with Easter eggs, and we'll talk about those in a minute. But there's so much happening in this episode. But basically, Loki goes with these other variant Lokis. They go hide in this basically doomsday hatch, as it were. Even more Lokis show up. They get into a big scuffle, and then our Loki and the ones that saved him at the beginning of the episode escape. And he's basically like, all right, we got to kill the Goliath thing. That seems to be the only option here. Like, are you guys with me? And they're like, okay, we'll help you. Whereas previously they weren't about it. So they're making their way to confront Goliath. And meanwhile, at the TVA, Sylvie is confronting Renslayer, being like, give me these answers. What's going on here? And she basically tempts Sylvie with the knowledge that, hey, Loki's not dead. You can still save him. Let's work together. But basically, Renslayer was just kind of stalling for time until more guards show up. And Sylvie, who's surrounded, then just prunes herself, and she appears in the void and is promptly saved by Mobius as Sylvie is getting attacked by Goliath as soon as she shows up. It's a bit of a tongue twister. And quick scene between them, and she basically is like, hey, I gotta enchant that thing. Turn around. We're heading back to the big scary monster. So now we got Sylvie, Mobius, and our group of Lokis. They're both basically converging on Goliath. So they meet up, kind of catch up a little bit. And Sylvie's like, you were trying to kill it? Idiot. We gotta enchant it. And so then that becomes their goal. And Sylvie actually stole a little TemPad from Renslayer. And so she's like, here, Loki, take this. Get out of here. And he's like, no, if you're staying, I'm staying. Let's do this. So he gives it to Mobius. And Mobius then offers to the other Lokis, like, hey, you guys want to get out of here? And they're like, no, this is our home. So they don't come. So Mobius and Loki kind of say their goodbyes. Mobius pieces out, presumably to the TVA. And then our two, Loki and Sylvie, go confront Goliath. And Loki tries to be a distraction while she enchants it, but it's not working. Things look to be grim for our two heroes, as it were. But then classic old Loki shows up, a badass moment, does this incredible Asgardian illusion, which I'm sure we're going to talk about, provides the distraction for Sylvie and Loki, who in a self-sacrifice during this that gives them enough time to actually enchant Goliath. And the episode ends with him being enchanted and a portal opening up to a castle on an asteroid, seemingly. And that's where it ends. I think I hit most of it. I know we're going to go into the details here now, but did I miss anything important, do you think?
No, I think you hit it all. I mean, and for an episode that was like, 47 minutes long, there's so much to talk about, so many different things. I don't even know really where to start. I mean, there's a lot happening in this episode, and it's a great episode for sure.
I think that, and let me know your thoughts on this, but I think maybe we should kind of go over like the Easter eggs and stuff first, and then kind of dive into like what we think's happening, and maybe just because there's so many Easter eggs, we can maybe just kind of like talk about those real quick.
This was definitely like an ode to Marvel fans over the years type episode. Most of them I didn't know what they were. I was like Googling it. I was trying to figure it out. I was like, well, who is that? Was that a some kind of tiny Thor? What was that? Oh, it's Frog. Yeah. What is that? And then like the Thanos copter. She turned to my wife and I'm like, what the heck is that thing? And so I did spy, I think it was who's the guy from Guardians of the Galaxy, the villain from the first one?
Oh, Ronan,
Ronan. Did I
his
spy
ship.
his ship that was
Yeah,
crashed
yeah,
like on
yeah.
the side?
I'm pretty sure because I thought the same thing. So I think it is, or at least a ship like that.
It did look like it. So, all right. So let's start with the Easter eggs. Good call. So,
Okay.
what were all the Easter eggs in this
Oh
episode?
man, I'm sure there's more than I even caught on to, but man, so many. I know the first one, just the title of the episode, Journey into Mystery, was a nod to that was the run of the comics where Loki and Thor were introduced. So that was a fun little just quick
Okay.
nod to that, especially since we got classic Loki in this episode. You know, that basically the Loki from that comic was old man Loki, like the same costume and everything, basically. Um, so I thought that was cool. And then, like you said, my favorite two Easter eggs are probably the ones you just mentioned, the Frog Thor and the Thanos copter, were just so amazing. And I guess the way you were saying, were you not familiar with the helicopter
No,
before
yeah. What's
the
the
show?
Thanos copter?
It's basically just a big meme that because in the comics Thanos had a helicopter and it was called the Thanos helicopter and it looked
Okay.
exactly like what they did in the show, like, and that's what I loved about it, that they didn't like try to update it or make it cool, but it just basically looked like, I had Thanos written on the side, like,
It looks
just,
ridiculous. You try to
yeah.
imagine that in like Avengers Endgame or Infinity War, and
Yes.
you're just like, what? This wouldn't make any sense.
Exactly. And I just love the implications that, like, you know, as I'm sure probably variations of everyone has been here, but so has Thanos. And,
hmm
even he couldn't stand up to Goliath, presumably. Which, okay, yeah, I don't want to get too ahead. We're still in the Easter eggs, but yeah,
Yeah. So
those are my favorite.
So we have the title, we have the Thanos copter, we have Ronan ship, we have Frog Thor, which
Yes.
from what I can gather, that was some single run comic where there is a Frog Thor,
Yeah, so I don't know too much about this, but I think it is like
or is a comic series.
I think it's like a recurring character. Like, I don't know if he like headlines his own. Like, I don't know enough about it to say that, but I think he has like had multiple appearances.
Okay.
And so I think there's also like Thor turned into a frog, and then there is also like a frog that was worthy of Mjolnir and like got
Okay.
powers that way, but it wasn't Thor himself.
Yeah. Okay.
So I don't know which one we saw. I think it was probably Thor turned into a frog is what we saw in the show, as
Okay.
opposed to
So we
the
have
other way around.
we have those four. We had which I thought was Stark Tower, and then I saw on our Twitter you had pointed out that it was actually, what was it called? The company that it was sold to?
So it's I think it's pronounced Kang, which
Okay.
is Qeng, but it actually is like a front for Kang, the Conqueror Kang. It's who Tony Stark, he sold Stark Tower in the comics to like Kang Enterprises, and again Qeng.
hmm
So the fact that it was Kang was like a reveal later on down the line. So I thought that was super interesting, and we've had so many like nods and allusions to Kang throughout this whole show, but this episode especially was pretty heavy-handed with it. Because there was also, and I didn't see this, saw someone else point it out. There was another dilapidated building somewhere in the void that was like Kang Park,
Hmm.
Qeng. So very interesting. And there were also, just while we're on the subject, the Sphinx and like
Yeah.
was there a pyramid too, or was it just a Sphinx?
I don't remember.
Because I know that
Definitely was a
in
Sphinx though.
in Kang's like time empire in the comics, he's got like all these relics from different eras, and so like he has like a Sphinx and a pyramid like in his empire. So clearly this isn't like his empire because it's the void at the end of all time, but perhaps like that Sphinx was a from
hmm
one of his variants or something. I don't know, but
Well, and I don't know if
so
this
much.
counts as an Easter egg. It was definitely like a nod to the fans of at the end, or excuse me, the beginning of Infinity War when Loki is killed by Thanos, and people had said, maybe he wasn't dead, maybe
Yes.
he's gotten out of so many events like this before. And we have classic Loki as his variant timeline explain that he creates this projection that was so tangible, even the Mad Titan thought it was real. And then he basically floated off into space and lived in solitude for his whole. And like,
Yeah.
I feel like that was such a respectful way to design his character towards the fans who really love Loki, who really wanted to believe something like that was the case. And so I don't know if we count that as an Easter egg or not, but that was a really cool, like they took a popular fan theory and wrote it into the show, which was cool.
Yes, agreed. That was awesome, and I have more on that later. But 100% agreed that that was so cool because I even remember watching those fan theory videos back after Endgame first came out. So it was I was laughing when that happened in the show, and I was like, was this a specific nod? And it had to be, right? Like,
Oh yeah.
I feel like it's way too much of a coincidence for them to just have like organically come up with that. So I love that, and it just goes to show that like these showrunners and writers, like, they are passionate about it to like be able to make that type of deep cut nod to the fan base.
So speaking back, another Easter, I don't know if this is an Easter egg or not, but I had been reading about like people's theories on where we're heading with this, and someone had mentioned, so you mentioned Kang Tower. Someone mentioned that Alioth was Kang's, I guess he existed outside of time and was the only thing Kang was fearful of, or like was a counter to Kang, or I'm not really clear exactly what Alioth was. In this case, in the show, it seems to be more like a guard dog. But if Kang is not in the next episode, we can assume that this is another heavy-handed-esque Easter egg.
Yeah, for sure. And
Which it's kind of hard to talk about these things without also being like, okay, so what's going on here?
Yeah. So, okay, we'll what's the word? Parlay? That's not the right word. So, I don't
Table
know.
it.
We'll table Alioth for just a second. But yeah, I do have some thoughts there. But so then what else did I have? We've got the one of the coolest ones to me was the statue of the head of a statue of the Living Tribunal, which was just crazy to me because like we haven't had any mention of that in the MCU yet. Although there was supposed to be a deleted scene in Endgame that referenced it, but they scratched it. So I just thought that was cool, and it made me wonder what led to that being there, like what was the Nexus event or whatever that got pruned dealing with that. I mean, it was just a statue, so maybe it was just not important. But
I can't remember the Reddit comment I read, but someone was like, "Oh, that's that," and then they had like a big write up on it. But it was so
really?
It was so in the weeds on like different comics that I couldn't follow it. Basically, I mean, I was like, okay, I don't know what that is.
Interesting.
There was another Easter egg, and this is another one that I found on Reddit because I didn't know the reference. But the USS Eldridge, the ship,
yes,
that I guess
saw that
apparently like it was some experiment in our time on like teleporting a ship or something like that. I was like, what is this a real thing? And like apparently it was a real thing that was purported it was going to happen. And so we in the show get to see the ship basically arrive in the void, and unfortunately the sailors don't have much luck with Alioth. So
yeah, it was like I think it was the Philadelphia experiment. It's like a big conspiracy theory about and I think the guy that like started it admitted he was lying before he died or something. But yeah, it was about like these mystical things going on with the ship, like they were trying to make it invisible, and basically a big urban legend, I guess isn't the right word, but just kind of conspiratorial myth. So I thought that was a great, kind of similar to the DB Cooper kind of Easter egg we got about real life. I enjoyed seeing another one with that. Couple other things I noticed. The Sanctum Sanctorum. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but Doctor Strange's where he lives with Wong and all that. There was a destroyed one of those in one of the scenes. So I thought that was cool, especially since he is like the protector of reality, I wonder, we don't want to get too off base here, but I think maybe we even talked about this, but like, does Doctor Strange know about the TVA, or would that be news to him? I'm very curious.
Yeah, great question.
Maybe that got cleaved because he found out or something. But then we had a helicarrier, like from the Winter Soldier, but it had as a Hydra symbol on it. So maybe it was from a timeline where like Cap fails in Winter Soldier, and those things go up and take out everybody like they were planning to. And then I think that's most of the big ones. The Polybius arcade machine. Thought that was a cool nod. Is another like kind of real life conspiracy nod. Are you
That
familiar
one
with
I don't
this?
know.
So it was an arcade game, and it was in their hatch hideout when they were going down in there. And it's basically this arcade game from like the 70s or around that era that was rumored to be like a government like mind control device. Like people that played it, it was like supposed to brainwash you, and like I don't think it actually ever existed, but people are convinced like, oh, I remember one back in my arcade, and like these dudes in suits came and removed it one day.
Hmm.
So just another fun little nod to like crazy real life
Hmm.
events. And then the only other thing I had, oh, the massive yellow jacket helmet. That was cool.
Hmm. Hmm.
And it reminded me, I shouldn't even bring this up since I don't remember what comic it was from, but oh wait, I think it's Old Man Logan. It reminded me of in Old Man Logan, it's like a post-apocalyptic world because Wolverine has healing. He's like one of the last he can
Yeah.
survive, so it's like a dilapidated apocalyptic world. And there's the corpse of Giant Man, so Ant-Man, but when he's giant. So his like bones are like littered across the countryside. And I know that's not really what we got here, but it just reminded me of it, and so
Jeez, that's dark.
yeah, it is. And
Oh my
just made me
gosh.
wonder like what happened there, and is it even potentially where he ended up? Because at the end of Ant-Man 1, he just disappears into the quantum realm because he like gets too small or whatever. So
Right.
part of me wondered like, is this where he ended up, or probably not, but
So,
maybe.
not to go way down the rabbit trail, but also there's if they do bring in the basically the X-Men into the Marvel universe, which seems to be what's going to happen. You
Yeah,
also have that. What was the X-Men movie where they basically changed time? Like it was the end. It was the apocalypse basically, and
yeah,
they went back in time maybe, or I can't remember, but basically changed it. So
right.
now there's some interesting implications there with the TVA. And so it would seem like with X-Men, if they do introduce it, they're going to have to do like a clean wipe. Like now moving forward, this is now canon and everything else was, whatever
Right.
else.
Well, I mean, as far as it's been concerned now, because in this, we won't get too sidetracked with that. Um, don't know if he can still hear me, but I'm gonna keep going. The I don't think the Fox stuff is canon because Marvel didn't have the rights to it then, so
Right.
I think they distanced themselves from it. So I think if and not if really when it's introduced here, I think it is going to be completely brand new. Kind of ignoring everything that happened with those other movies,
We want Hugh
which is probably
Jackman
for the
or we
best.
riot.
I know.
Give us Hugh Jackman.
Did, again, not to get too off track here, but did you see that I think it was last week, like he put an Instagram story of like artwork of Wolverine, and then like the next photo was him and Kevin Feige
Don't
together.
do that to me, man.
I
Don't tell me
know.
this.
It's like, wait, and if they're gonna open the multiverse, maybe they could do something.
What Kevin Feige needs to do is to pull up to his house and say, okay, just write the number on this pad. Like we are literally swimming in it. Just write it down, and we'll I don't know. I mean, they just need to make it happen because I know he's
Yeah,
getting older, but I mean, like he's so peak, Wolverine that I don't know.
perfect casting. And yeah, I think it would like they're opening the multiverse, right? So it could work. Like bring him in for, whatever. But because you could still have, because he is getting kind of old, you can't really have him be Wolverine for the next another 20 years, right? But
Mhm.
since we're opening the multiverse, bring him in, have him do a little thing, and then we still will get a new Wolverine too.
Wasn't there also
That's my
like
2 cents.
wasn't there like a post credit scene too in a movie where like they approach Wolverine about basically joining something and he's like F off or something.
Yeah,
Was that
it's
in a Marvel movie? Or
no, it was in one of
okay.
the X-Men movies. It
Oh,
was, I
okay.
think, the first one where they kind of soft rebooted it, where they
Yeah,
didn't
okay.
reboot it, but they went younger. First Class, I think. It was the
Yes,
post-credit
that's
scene.
right. Yes,
It
because
was
it's
like,
Michael
yeah,
Fassbender and the guy playing Professor X. That's right.
right. James
I've seen
McAvoy.
so many post credit scenes that they're all like, melding together. But
Yeah.
one other Easter egg that we didn't mention, and this is one that I was reading about, was the sword, which I was like, what's the deal with the sword? You know, why is Kid Loki like, hey, you're going to need this, and like gives him the sword? And we don't know like how that's going to be written in terms of importance for episode 6. But it was an awesome moment where he, you know, throws the sword up, it catches on fire, and you're just like, whoa, this is new.
Yeah.
Apparently, in Norse mythology, just like Thor has Mjolnir, Loki creates his own sword that sometimes is engulfed in fire when he uses it. So apparently it's a nod to the mythology of Loki, and that sword. And I didn't know how to pronounce it. I read it and I was like, okay, I don't know how to pronounce that. I'm not going to try that. But had you seen anything like that?
Yeah, I saw I saw a few people think it was different swords, but I'm on the same page with the one you're describing, which I don't know if I'm saying it right either, but Levitin sword, is that the one you're talking about?
Yes, it is. But
Okay.
I didn't know how to pronounce it, so you're
Well,
one
I don't know
step
if that's
farther than
right,
me.
so don't quote me on it. But
I always feel like when we do these episodes, I just always think that there must be the purist out there who's so angry that we don't. It's like, how do you not know how to say it? You know, I don't know.
The hate watcher again.
Yeah. All right, so we hit all the Easter eggs. Do you want to dive into the episode?
Yeah, I do have one more though, and
Go for
it's
it.
very mundane. But I don't know if you noticed, but the massive pile of lunch trays. Did you see that one?
No.
Which what I took from that is that the TVA is lazy as hell, and like in the cafeteria, instead of just washing it, they just prune all their trash, and so there was a huge pile of like discarded lunch trays. So that's my headcanon is for what that was.
It does make you wonder, yeah, how do they maximize their manpower capacity by putting everyone where they need to go? So okay, yeah, interesting. Well, let's talk about the episode.
Yeah.
First of all, we've said this like 50,000 times, but love the episode. It was awesome. It was great to see all these characters. I was pretty. I loved when our Loki, he's basically walking with the other Lokis to their bunker, and I love how he's acting. By the way, he's like, "What the heck is going on here? What is happening?" But I loved getting the brief origin stories of each Loki. From we had boastful Loki, who once they're in the bunker, like tells all these things, and you can kind of tell that he's basically exaggerating or what have you. But that one line, though, where Loki asks Kid Loki, what was your next event? What did you do? And he leans in and says, I killed Thor. Like, wow. Like, that was a cool moment. And I saw some cool theories on Reddit of people saying that, since Loki was a prankster, maybe it was unintentional. Like, maybe he was trying to prank Thor and accidentally killed him. What's your take on it?
Yeah, I saw that people were thinking that too. I think that would be like a cool explanation, but I don't necessarily subscribe to the idea that like that's 100% what it was. That I think it was the thing in Ragnarok referenced when like he tricks him thinking he's a snake and then stabs him. But yeah, I thought that moment was awesome, and part of me was wondering, especially given like the character development kind of we see from him throughout the episode, because he didn't seem to be like wholly evil or anything, that maybe it wasn't like a malicious killing of Thor. Maybe it was even something that he blames himself for, and like maybe Thor died because of him, or maybe Thor died saving him, and that's kind of how he's just twisted it into like I killed Thor.
Don't you love how they keep developing the character of Loki, like with each episode? And there were a couple of really great lines. You had classic Loki, basically, as they're getting out of the bunker, says something along the lines of, every time we try to better ourselves, like they won't let us, or something to that effect. And we've talked about this on the Pixelists podcast a couple times now, about that very first episode when Mobius basically says, this is your destiny. And we hear Renslayer say something similar. He's evil. He's designed to fail. He's designed to be the bad guy. That is just who he is. And we keep talking about this theme of like free will choice versus like the predestination of what the TVA has determined. We got more of that in this episode. And classic Loki, which by the way, what an actor to have just one episode's worth of screen time, and you're just like, dude, this guy is freaking awesome. I think you're muted again.
Thank you. Yeah, dude, Richard E. Grant killed it, and he did amazing. And really, I loved like all the variant Lokis that we saw, and I thought they all did a good job. It was also great to just see, Tom Hiddleston portray the vote for Loki as well. Oh, and I can't believe it's taken me this long to mention, but bro, Alligator Loki is maybe my favorite.
Croaky. Yeah, he was great. Him biting off President Loki's hand was so unexpected to me because I was like, what's he going to do? Which that whole scene was great. It follows this trend of like big ideas that are pretty bad. Like we see our Loki have the idea to kill Goliath, and Sylvie's like, you guys are letting him go through with this? Like, this is such an idiot plan. But you have boastful Loki who's like saying, he's the one who betrayed them, and he's like, I agreed to show you where they were, and you guys would all serve me. Like something like that's so ridiculous. And then classic Loki's like, or not classic Loki, President Loki's like, I don't like that idea. Instead, everyone's going to work for me. And then everyone's like, no, we're not doing that. So I'd liked how that also continued to play out as well.
Me too. And it was awesome seeing our Loki's just kind of response. I think he just like was face palming during that whole kerfuffle, and just goes to show the character development that he's had. And I guess while we're on the classic Loki thing, I think right before that is where we got the explanation you already referenced, the Easter egg where he faked his death, and pretends to be inanimate debris, and basically just the power he exhibits is pretty crazy. And that scene as well, he makes the illusions of their whole crew basically so that they can escape, and then he just creates a portal that they all go through. And it just makes me wonder, one, how old he is. Like, we don't really have a reference for how long he was on that planet, before the TVA came and snatched him, or how long he's been here. And I don't want to jump too far ahead, but I guess it doesn't. Yeah, we're not really tied to anything. But it makes me wonder if he is really dead, because perhaps he just did the exact same thing that he described at the end of this episode. That he just faked his death again, and because there is a piece of debris in that final shot that's kind of like floating toward the castle. And so I didn't come up with this, but I saw people talking about it like, shit, what if he's doing it again? And so I think that would be crazy.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely could be. For me, I liked it just as a nod to all the theorizing about Loki. Part of me wonders if it could actually be the case, since in his sort of life strip that he's being shown, it's like end of film. And so I have no idea. I don't know. It'd be great if he was still around. I don't know if I believe that he is. Regardless, it was a really cool reference to that theory. And then also I loved his line. He says something along the lines of, we're stronger than we think we are.
Yeah.
Which brings us back to the previous episode where he basically catches the building and throws it back. Right. And everyone was like, where did this come from? Like, this feels really out of place. Yeah. That one line actually was enough for me. I was like, okay, yeah, now it feels right. It makes sense. It doesn't feel so awkward anymore. Were you satisfied with the explanation?
Yeah, I actually didn't even think about it in the light of that context. But yeah, I mean, that works for me too. Because it really, I don't know. It really is crazy how strong he is. And I think, I don't know if you saw this or not, but one of the things I was talking about on Twitter was that, just that Asgardian illusion was so cool. And my headcanon was that it's because he was trapped on that planet alone, that he like meticulously cultivated that, like, to try to recreate his home, to like kind of fill that void. And so I just loved the narrative thread of it being the thing that then, enables them to win at the end of the episode.
Yeah, and
also just Oh, go ahead.
I was just saying, I thought it was a random city until as he started to form it. I was like, oh my gosh, that's Asgard.
Yeah.
I like that theory, by the way. I hadn't put that together, but yeah, I mean, obviously he's lived in solitude and he's missed his family. It's actually why he decides to leave and what catches him, so to speak, in terms of with the TVA. But yeah, I like the idea of this old man who's sort of crafting every detail of what he remembers from his home.
Yeah, I mean, especially if if he literally was just on a planet by himself. I mean, got to fill the time somehow. So maybe he was perfecting that illusion.
Yeah, I almost wonder, like, what do you do with all of your time, right? I mean, because I mean, they also, I mean, they age differently, than like humans. So you mentioned, like, I don't know how old he is. So yeah, that's a long time. And again, we're just like, hey, TVA, let the guy go see his brother. I mean, like, if you weren't sold on the TVA being bad, like the fact that they were like, oh no, we can't have you going back and people knowing you're alive. I mean, that in of itself was another knock against the TVA.
Yeah,
so,
for sure.
Well, let's talk about maybe the opening of the episode with Sylvie and Renslayer. There's sort of this running dialogue on, does Renslayer know who is behind the Timekeepers? And I've had this dialogue with a couple of people. I can't remember if you and I talked about this or not, because I know I sent you a couple of voice memos that you were like, okay, you already sent that to me. So I don't know if I've actually told you this or not, but what I was talking to my wife about, because we were like, does she know? Does she not know? Maybe she does know, and she's like really pretending. And even B-15's like reading her wrong. I'm like, even you want to get to the bottom of this? I'm under the opinion that she doesn't know who's behind the Timekeepers, which is also why she asked Miss Minutes, hey, go get me everything on the start of the TVA. But also, going back to the previous episode, we mentioned it on the podcast, her going up the elevator to talk to them by herself at the start, she seems terrified. I mean, she seems legitimately like, oh my gosh, like I have to. And we said this on the show, was why would she be doing that if she knew that they were all puppets, so to speak. And so that I'm still believing, okay, yeah, she still has no idea, she's not sure, but she wants to get to the bottom of it.
Yeah, I think it's really kind of confusing on where the line is drawn of like what she knows and doesn't, because I think basically the point you just said about how she was scared and stuff, I think to me that she didn't know that the Timekeepers were robots. I think it makes more sense that like she still bought that, and I think she's trying to find out as much as possible now and try to get to the bottom of it, but she's kind of just leaning towards, all right, my whole life's work has been this TVA stuff, so I'm still going to like operate in that direction, but like I need to figure out what's going on. But I do think she knew more than the average person, because she knew that, pruning somebody didn't actually kill them.
Right.
And she maybe even knew that people were variants, since, that didn't seem to shock her too much post the whole C-20 fiasco. So to me, I think she knew some things, but she didn't know she didn't know that the Timekeepers weren't real, and she doesn't know who is ultimately the man behind the curtain.
I like that she knows. I like believing that she knows people are variants, and maybe she even knows she's herself a variant, or maybe she's not, which would be a crazy way for it to play out. Again, going back to the pin, the high school pin, I think it's a souvenir from her timeline. It's how she remembers where she's from, and she sort of selfishly keeps it, even though no one else gets to have the same nostalgia, basically the same experience of their memories, which again, the hypocrisy of all of that, I think, just plays into how sinister she is. I will say that I wasn't wild about her and Sylvie's chemistry. It felt really strange to me. She went from like this very sinister person in the previous episode of like, what was my Nexus event? I don't remember. Yeah. And you're just like, oh man. And then this one, it was more like, I was like, okay, you guys just aren't really vibing together. And some of the writing was a little weird too. Like, and I couldn't tell if they were going for comedic effect or what, but like when she's like, Miss Minutes, pull up the information on the Void spaceship. And she's like, okay. And you're just like, that I don't know if that was the right word. Like maybe it should have been something else. But pretty much that whole scene between the two of them, I was just like, man, they just are not pinging like I would hope they would.
Yeah, it was just also kind of weird that like Sylvie would even for a second believe her, you know? Like
Yeah,
this
does she?
woman ruined your life.
Doesn't she even say like you almost had me or something? Like
Yeah,
you're like, no, she like that's totally out of character for you. I mean, you are
right.
Loki. I mean, yeah. I mean, that as amazing as the episode was, that was the only negative of like I was like, oof, if I could like fix anything this episode, I'd have them rewrite it, reshoot it. I mean, it was fine. I love that she self-pruned herself, but
Yeah.
it was out of flavor, so to speak, from the feeling we've gotten from the rest of the show, and especially that episode.
Yeah, I agree. That was a little off to me as well. And I think I mean it'll be funny to see if they pay it off and there actually is a void spacecraft. But to me that was just, Miss Minutes kind of being intelligent enough to realize that okay, we're stalling here. And
Yeah,
so
yeah.
don't forget about the void spacecraft, which uh not to jump here, but Miss Minutes, man, what
Wait, can we
I
talk
still
about her
can't figure out
being?
what's going on with
Yeah,
her.
are we sold on her being the mastermind? Like the, because I know you're
I
pretty
don't
suspicious of her, and I don't know if my wife had watched all of our episodes, but even this last episode, she was like, "Okay, Miss Minutes, what's going on with her? What's up with this lady?" Because even when Renslayer says, "I need everything," you can see the emotion, so to speak, on Miss Minutes' face of like, "Okay, I'll get you everything." So yeah, what's going on with Miss Minutes?
Yeah, and it was interesting just like the like empathy, if that's the right word, or just like the emotional intelligence she showed there. Like, 'cause she wasn't like any undertones of like, oh, these people are digging too deep, like there wasn't any type of like sinister turn or anything. It was like, oh, like Renslayer's in trouble, like let me help kind of stall for time here, or let me look for, and then even past that scene when she brings her up again, it's like, I need all those files. She's like, all right, I'm gonna go look for them.
Mm-hmm.
So either she's like super in deep and like an amazing, liar, I guess, or Miss Minutes too doesn't know everything, and so just who is she? What is she? What's going on there? I don't know.
I can tell you're real unsettled with Miss
I
Minutes.
know. I know. I want to know. I need answers, and I hope we do get them. Like, I feel like there's so much stuff that like needs to be wrapped up, and wrapped up's not really the right word because
Yeah.
I don't think it'll be tied up with a bow. But like, so many big questions with the multiverse, with everything that we might not get any more information on Miss Minutes, and I think that would be normal. But I hope we do.
Yeah, I think unfortunately there's a lot that has to happen in the next episode. You have Mobius sort of jokingly saying, I'm gonna burn it all down." And you
I don't know
have
if he was joking.
not joking, not like literally joking. I mean like he's being humorous in the sense of like, "No, I'm about to go make things
Yeah.
happen." Um so thinking about how does this person do this in a place that is so it's pro TVA. I mean, it is the TVA. How does that happen? It feels like also the majority of the story that's left to tell is between Loki and Sylvie. And so all these other implications about the multiverse, I'm definitely wondering what's going to happen to, I guess, satisfy us. And I know we will be satisfied seeing the next episode, but there's definitely going to be a lot left on the table, is what I'm thinking.
Yeah. Agreed. And I think we've mentioned this before, but I now have like 99.9% certainty. Gonna leave the point one just in case, but there is gonna be a season two. So I just wonder what that's gonna look like. And, maybe it's not even with Tom Hiddleston, maybe it's with Sylvie or, somebody else. But just because there's a season two doesn't give me any like confidence that like our Loki's gonna survive necessarily.
Mm-hmm. Which
But yeah, I just
would that be next year?
see that I don't know. Probably not, just because like, I I would imagine, they take a few years between movies that, this is much longer content
Mm-hmm.
than that. I imagine it would take a while. I mean, but I don't know. I guess it could be, or maybe they'll just do it in like 5 years, after phase four, and I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know, because
that information may be out there. I don't know.
if they're planning a season 2 like next year, then I'm wondering, okay, where does this line up in like the movie releases? Because they've shown that they like having this as like another form of content that pieces together the larger chunks of the story. And so, there was a lot implicated by WandaVision. Undoubtedly, there's going to be a lot implicated by Wednesday's episode. I wonder when they are planning season 2, because it's going to give us an idea of, okay, when is it going to go public or go live, excuse me.
Yeah.
And where is it going to fit between films? I'm assuming after the Multiverse of Madness, for sure after that, but it does make you wonder, would it be immediately after that, or would it be, like you said, it's 4 years later? Because, like, for example, when does Quantum Mania come out?
I think 2022.
Because, like, what if the reveal on Wednesday is that it is Kang the Conqueror, and which people have been like, which I've gone. I mean, there's so many Kang references. It's pretty wild. We'll talk. I guess we can talk about this in here in a second, but you've had some people say it's Doctor Doom, which I did a deep dive on reading people's theories about that. And then people who've said, hey, it's a show about Loki. It's going to be Loki. It's going to be a Loki version who is this nefariously running everything at the end of time. And it explains why Loki's been pruned more than any other variant. Regardless of what it is, it would be interesting if Kang was introduced Wednesday and Multiverse happens, and then season 2 happens next summer, building up to Quantum Mania. Which I don't know.
That would be interesting.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either. I mean, that would be awesome. I would love to even get it that soon, but they obviously have a plan, right? Like, that's why I don't think I think this was, and I think we even mentioned this maybe in episode 1, but like, they've always known there's going to be a season 2. So I think it fits somewhere in their grand plan. And so just my instincts would tell me that it's gonna be a while, as opposed to like a normal show having a season every year.
Okay, how about this? Quantum Mania comes out, and then I just give like the next 30 minutes just like different versions of the same scoop. But I will say, I don't want to brag, but we're pretty good on the podcast about different theories and guesses and like what's going to happen. So I'm gonna go ahead and ship that. I'm shipping it, and we'll see by Quantum Mania. It's either going to be right before or right after is my theory that I'm shipping.
Okay.
And we'll clip this to put on Twitter whenever this actually happens.
There you go.
Which we got to give credit to another one of our theories. Last episode we talked about, okay, if people don't die when they get pruned, where did they go? And we said maybe it's the end of time. We said that, and sure enough, that's where they're going, the end of time. So another, count it, another theory that we were correct on.
That's right. And don't worry about the ones we've been wrong on. It's not important.
We've nailed some pretty big ones.
Yeah, we have.
So yeah. So who are you thinking is the big bad for next episode? We talked about it a second ago. There's a few theories out there. What are you sold on?
I think I'm leaning, I should say, towards it being a Loki variant. And maybe it's just because I'm still, like, wounded from the whole Mephisto thing. But I just don't feel like, yes, we've had a million nods to him, but I still don't feel like enough, like, groundwork has been laid for that to really impact people that, like, aren't familiar with Marvel. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, if you and I are going to know who Kang is if he shows up, but like somebody else is going to be like, who?
Right.
And I feel like I'll be happy if it is Kang. I think that'll be awesome. But just what I just said, and then also I feel like even though Jonathan Majors has been cast in, Ant-Man, I feel like such a big, what's the word? Cameo, I guess, would be so hard to keep under wraps. Like, not that they couldn't do it, but I don't know. But if it was any huge new character, I think it would be Kang, because there's no way that, like, I think there's no way it's Doctor Doom, because there's no way they could keep that casting under wraps. Like, if Marvel had cast a Doctor Doom, there's no way that news wouldn't have gotten out.
Yeah, I mean, definitely like the fan theories on it being Doctor Doom. I'm like, guys, have we not learned our lesson from WandaVision? Like, and I even saw one theory that was like, it's Mephisto, and I was like, okay, hang on, stop. We got to stop doing this to ourselves, please. So yeah, I agree. I think less than 1% chance it would be Doctor Doom. I think there's no way. I'm probably 70-30 on it being Loki, a version of Loki. It's called Loki. It's always been about Loki and Loki variants. So to me, it makes sense that it's Loki. The other 30%, there's just been so many allusions to Kang. And I would not, that kind of cameo, I mean, this is coming from, The Mandalorian that had Luke Skywalker cameo, which
that was amazing.
Yeah, that came out of nowhere. So I'm no longer thinking, well, we would know, it'd get leaked, we would know about it. I hope it's Kang. I'm setting myself up for it to be Loki.
Okay. Yeah, I don't necessarily hope it's Kang, but I would be ecstatic if it was. I'm trying not to hope for anything so that I don't get disappointed one way or another, which I don't think I'm going to. I've loved this show. I think anything they do is going to be well done. But I'm leaning Loki because, like you just said, this has been about Loki. And I think it's kind of an interesting narrative bookend if it is Loki, because, at the start of this show, he wants to, he's like, my whole thing is freedom is I forget what he says, but he's like, it's a bad thing. I need to strip away people's freedom and they'll be happier. I should be ruler. And essentially that's what the TVA has done, right? Because they're stripping free will in a way away from people, because they're eliminating any time they do something that interferes with the timeline. So you could kind of that same mindset that Loki had at the beginning is kind of the mantra of the TVA in a way. So it would be interesting, especially since we have Sylvie, who's this paragon Loki of the hero, the outlier in terms of being good, that maybe we have the foil of that with the Loki who fully embraced the evil, selfish side. So I think that would be kind of a cool, from a writing standpoint, way to make the big bad just be the evil Loki. And I think they're also, if it's a Loki or if it's Kang, I guess doesn't really matter. But I think we're building up to a final temptation, a final test of our Loki.
I love that.
Even in the last episode, Sylvie and Loki are talking, and she's like, "Are you gonna betray me? Can I trust you?" So, and he's like, "Yes, I'm not that person anymore. I've betrayed my dad, my brother, and I've betrayed everyone, but that's no longer who I am." So I think you kind of have to have a pivotal moment where that's tested. And so maybe it's, again, it doesn't matter if it's Loki or Kang, I guess, but it makes more sense to me if there is another Loki, and either they defeat him and have the chance to take over for him, or if it's even, and this is kind of getting a little out there, but so pardon me, but if the whole TVA, everything has existed, the sacred timeline has existed in order to ensure that this man behind the curtain always stays in power, right? Presumably, the reason he's making the timeline the way it is so that he always comes out on top. Well, if it is a Loki, maybe he's just trying to restart that cycle. And, maybe he's ancient, and everything has been leading to this moment where our Loki is yeah, this was all for you. You have to take over now. Now you're going to do this and make sure that this continues. Because, either maybe he's going to die or maybe something. And so maybe that's the grand test. It's yep, here, now.
Yeah.
Now it's your,
okay, that's interesting. It's kind of, to not bring it back, but it's kind of Lost-esque of when Desmond lands on the island and the guy essentially hands over the button to him. And it's a bit different in the sense of, you're talking about this paradox a bit of essentially shaping the timeline, which I love this theory. I read a similar theory like this, or just people have mentioned comments like this, which I really like, is that now we're seeing that the TVA isn't trying to protect the sacred timeline for the good of all humanity, but presumably it's this person who is manipulating time to ensure whatever outcome this person wants. Most likely their own success, their own rise to power, who knows. But I love this idea of it being almost this sort of paradox of protecting that person's own rise to power through our Loki arriving at this point in time.
Yeah.
The thing that's, I think you're spot on the temptation piece. I think that it's too, we saw in Lamentus 1 where they're walking in to get to the Ark, where they look at each other and says, can we trust each other? And they say yes. And you're kind of like, but can they? And then we sort of settled, yes, we can. Like, we're good with that now. But then Sylvie asks that question in episode 5, which feels a bit out of place. And to me, it's exactly what you're saying. It implies there is going to be this final temptation that sort of completes the hero's journey for Loki.
Yeah.
The thing that's off for me is, again, being 70-30 that it is Loki as this version of Loki. I feel like it's going to have to be a different actor Loki. Only because it feels too gimmicky to have Tom Hiddleston versus Tom Hiddleston, and they're like, one's being the evil, like, because we also already saw President Loki, who was that sort of foil to who he's become now, who is this villainous, like, it's our original Loki, so to speak. And so we've already kind of seen that, been there, done that, which makes me think that we're going to get some different actor or actress version of Loki who, like you said, I love this idea, will give him his final test, either directly or will create a vacuum that sort of tempts him to step into greater power.
Yeah, I mean, at least I think that would be really interesting. And not to say that if it is Kang and it goes a different way, that too can't be compelling. But I just think it from like a narrative thread standpoint, I feel like it makes a lot of sense to kind of have it bookended with like another Loki and that temptation, as it were. But I agree that, and I guess this is a good time to get into it. Like, I think if it is another Loki, I don't think it's a Tom Hiddleston. And I don't want to launch into like another theory while I'm talking about a theory, so I try not to. But I think it could maybe even be Richard E. Grant. Like I said, if he didn't actually die, that maybe he's been the one all along, and he was just in the void to kind of like see what people were, like kind of just keep up tabs on people. But the interesting thing about that is, if it is him, then why did he help them get through Goliath? And I guess I'm doing lots of what ifs here, but if that's true and he did, then maybe it is the theory of, he's preparing the way for this new Loki to take his place. Like, maybe he's gonna die, or his time's over.
But why beat around the bush around it? I guess because of the presence of Sylvie, maybe. Like, I don't understand.
Yeah, that's a good point. So I don't know, but and that whole string of theories, to me, it's combining this evil maybe is not the right word, but the old man Loki kind of combined with He Who Remains, which I think we talked about very briefly at the beginning of this show, which in the comics, He Who Remains is who created the TVA and the Timekeepers at the end of the last universal cycle. He Who Remains somehow remained
right
over to the new one, and so he created the TVA and blah 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 blah. So like maybe old man Loki, even if it's not the one, even if it's not Richard E. Grant, if there is another Loki, maybe he is the one who remained from the previous universal cycle, and he created the TVA to ensure that once again he'll end up on top. But I do all that was to basically say that I do agree it won't be Tom Hiddleston. But what's weird is, in front of some of the trailer clips, like, since we're at the finale, people have basically figured out, oh, we still haven't seen this, so this must be in the finale. And there's like shots of Tom Hiddleston, like seemingly in front of like a throne, like an Asgardian throne. And then there's like a shot of him in Stark Tower, like from Avengers. And so I'm trying to reconcile, like, and maybe it's just a complete misdirect and those aren't even in the show. That wouldn't be surprising. I think Marvel's done stuff like that before. But it makes me wonder, like, okay, is the Loki in the tower gonna be a Tom Hiddleston, or does Tom have flashbacks, or I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, if it is a Loki, then this is a master of illusion and tricks. I mean, maybe that temptation is him being placed in front of the throne of Asgard, and sort of like saying, this is what you can have if you want it. I mean, I have no idea. I haven't done a deep dive on the trailer shots. But yeah, that's interesting. It does make me wonder what can happen.
Yeah, man. And I think the the whole theory that classic Loki didn't die, and there's that shot of the debris just like there was from the Thanos scene. I don't think it's the case, but it is like a kind of a huge coincidence, that like why have that piece of debris, just like there was in the Thanos scene. But I will say
is this
that
a legitimate piece of debris, or is this just like if I go back and watch this, am I going to be like, okay, it's just
so
because I feel like I imagine what's the meme of Leonardo DiCaprio from Wolf on Wall Street where he's like leaning forward and like pointing like from his chair, like that's what I'm envisioning you doing is like that's it, and I'm like, what is this?
yeah. So
Look, Jamie, pull this up.
If you're familiar with the original theory about the in-game scene, it's like a fuzzy in the very background of like him getting strangled. In the background, there's like a black chunk that's floating off, and so,
Okay.
and so that's why he says, I disguised myself as inanimate debris. So similarly, in that final shot of the castle through the portal, there's like a big rock chunk that's floating like toward the castle. So I mean, it could 100% be absolutely nothing, but it is an interesting coincidence at the least.
Mm-hmm. So
Uh,
let me ask you this: where we have this opening up of this castle, we're already at the end of time at the void.
mhm.
One, where is this location that they're going to that you think? And two, why a castle? Because part of me
Yeah.
wonders, like, are the writers just like messing with us? Because apparently Doctor Doom is really big into castles, I guess. And so like that's Doctor Doom's castle, and so like it obviously everything's been very deliberate in the show. Give me your take on both of those questions. Where is this location that they're stepping into, and why is it designed the way that it is?
So I think that the castle is like the true end of time. Whereas I don't know how would necessarily slice this up, but there's the void and then there's Eliath, but like the castle is like the end point.
I love that.
And the castle, I don't really maybe just flair. I don't know. Like, somebody that thinks they're good enough to like rule all of time, probably wants to have a castle.
Yeah, who wouldn't,
But
right?
yeah, exactly. And it is cool that like I know some people, and if you haven't like looked too much at the trailer, you maybe haven't noticed, or maybe not a trailer, but we get a like when Sylvie, at first in the episode when she's like running from Eliath at the very beginning, she like tries to enchant and gets those visions or whatever, and we kind of
Right.
get. I couldn't even tell what was happening in the moment, but
Right.
since I've gone back and I've seen what was shown there, and it's basically like showing the castle, and it's on like a big floating asteroid, and there's like this pure like blue light in the background that I know a lot of people have speculated like that's the sacred timeline, and this rock like exists at the end of time outside of it or whatever.
Hmm.
um I don't know enough about this to like say this with confidence, but I think that's also kind of where the He Who Remains kind of had a similar setup,
Hmm.
like at the end of time, alone on this rock or whatever it may be. So that's kind of another thing that played into like maybe they're combining the He Who Remains with the Loki variant. But yeah, I guess to answer your questions, my thought is that is the true like last point in time. The
Hmm.
only there's no planets, there's no life anywhere anymore. It's just this one structure on this rock. And
Yeah.
as far as it being a castle, my best guess is just for
Yeah, I love
luxury
that.
flair.
I love that. Two more questions for you. We're just throwing all the theories on the table.
Yeah.
One, do we get any Mobius screen time next episode? Or does this focus
Yeah.
totally on Sylvie and Loki? All right, you say yeah, pretty confidently. Okay, so you think we're going to do like a little bit of a split of what's happening at the TVA and what's happening with Loki and Sylvie?
Yeah, and I think they might converge again because clearly Renslayer is after the same thing. I think, she's also looking for the man behind the curtain, and so I think that not that Mobius will be with her necessarily, but I think all those threads are going to converge again.
She's going to discover the Void spaceship, and Mobius
Yep.
is going to sneak aboard as they go together.
The Void jet ski.
Yeah. And second question, do you think Sylvie survives?
Man, I don't know. I feel like feel like one of them has to not survive,
Hmm.
which it's tough because I mean, like I said, we know there's season two, but there's no reason season two couldn't be about Sylvie. You know, if Tom Hiddleston dies, which he's also been Loki for what, like over a decade at this point. So I mean, how long is he really going to do this? You know, is he going to really sign on to do a whole nother decade? Like maybe this is a good
Mm-hmm.
closing chapter for him. You know, he completes the hero's journey by instead of taking the temptation, maybe he does the truly selfless thing and sacrifices himself so that Sylvie may live, or you know that the TVA will be destroyed. Like I could that type of ending I don't want because I don't want him to die, but I could see that making sense, like narratively, like that would be very clean.
Mm-hmm.
Um, or you know maybe Sylvie's the one that does that, that makes the sacrifice play. But I do think that both of them aren't making it through the episode. I do think we'll probably lose one of them. What about you?
I feel the same way. I think you said it way better than I could. I think one of them walks out tomorrow. I wish it was tomorrow, Wednesday. So, yeah. Anything else, man?
I don't. No, I just still have so many questions though. But I think we pretty much covered the most of it.
One thing's for sure. There's going to be a serious void come Wednesday. Not the void from the show, but just it's amazing how good this whole experience this past spring and summer has been in terms of Marvel television. And yeah, I guess after next episode we'll do our deep dive. Maybe we'll do a postseason like as a whole reaction.
Yeah, it'd be interesting.
But after that, I guess we'll just be it'll be over.
I know, man.
Michael Jordan's career will be totally over. Scrubbed reference, sorry.
It was just we had so much to look forward to when WandaVision started. You know, it's like then we got Falcon, then we got Loki, Black Widow. Which side note, I'm seeing Black Widow tonight, so I'm excited about that. Have you seen it?
I haven't seen it yet. We were trying to scoop someone's Disney premiere or whatever for it. It's tough when you have a kid because you can't just be like, let's go see that movie. It's like, oh yeah, what do we do with our child? So
this is the first movie I'm going to in like however long it's been since Corona. So
we had a great experience when we went a few weeks ago, but I'm going to go ahead and tell you that your movie is going to be a lot better than mine, which was we will not have a Pixelist podcast chat on Fast and Furious 9. It's not worthy. Maybe we should. Once again, the hate watchers are like, how dare you?
But we should. I don't know what it would look like, but we should do something on Black Widow too once you see it.
For sure. All right. I think that does it.
Yeah. Thumbnail.
Oh yeah, it's the thumbnail.
You got anything? I'm kind of out right now.
Yeah, let me think for a second. I'm trying to think of like, I think I want to kind of do a Richard E. Grant Glorious Purpose, like, you know, channeling Asgard type pose. Okay. I don't know if you want to join me if you're going to do something. Yeah, I mean, it was, and I think when people see that thumbnail, they're going to be like, okay, those guys look like they're having a lot of fun. So I want to check out that one.
Okay, yeah, that works for me.
All right, cool. I'm going to back away from my mic though, so I can actually get in the shot.
Okay.
Dude, that was good. Nice. I'm already excited about that thumbnail. And hey, for our listeners, thanks for checking out the Pixelist podcast. Again, you can follow us on our Twitter at PXLists. I was going to say .com. I don't know why, but it's definitely not at .com. It's on Twitter at PXLists. Definitely check out if you have enjoyed our discussion on Loki. Like my co-host mentioned, we will have something for Black Widow. We also we got to talk about What If at some point. Get the hype started on that, which looks really good. Yeah. And absolutely check out Exandria Unlimited, our deep dives on those episodes. We have episode 3 coming out very soon, which you'll want to check out.
Yes, sir.
I think that does it. Thanks for tuning in.
I think so.
We'll catch you later.
Peace out.